My phone buzzed with a text that would change everything. "I'm quitting my job. You'll support us while I find myself..." My sister Amanda wrote like she was announcing dinner plans. I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold in my Chicago apartment. 28 years old, and she still thought I owed her my life. "Not my problem," I typed back, then immediately opened my laptop to accept the London consulting position I'd been considering. Monday start date confirmed. 10 minutes later, Mom's text arrived like a sledgehammer. "Banned from Thanksgiving until you sign your sister's $110,000 loan." That night, I logged into every shared account we had and systematically removed my name from payments I'd been covering for years. 22 missed calls lit up my phone like a Christmas tree. The calls kept coming as I sat cross-legged on my hardwood floor surrounded by bank statements that told a story I'd been too naive to see. Amanda had been bleeding me dry for 6 years, ever since I landed my financial analyst job at Morrison & Associates. What started as helping with her art school loans had morphed into something that made my stomach churn with recognition of my own stupidity. My savings account showed a balance that should have been $45,000. Instead, it read $12,300. Every automatic transfer I thought went to my emergency fund had been redirected to joint accounts that somehow always emptied themselves. Amanda's car payment, insurance, groceries for her 3 kids, even her subscription to some meditation app that was supposed to help her find her authentic self. The landline rang again. Dad this time, his voice strained and apologetic. "Brigitte, sweetheart, you know your mother means well. Amanda's going through a difficult transition period." A transition period. I pulled up Amanda's credit card statement linked to my account. Spa treatments, expensive dinners, designer clothes for kids who grew out of everything in months. "Dad, she spent $800 at Target last week. That's more than some people make in rent." "She's providing for those children, honey. Single motherhood isn't easy." I wanted to remind him that Amanda had chosen to have 3 kids with 2 different men, who both disappeared when responsibility knocked on their doors. Instead, I scrolled through more financial carnage. My credit cards showed charges I'd never made. Gas stations in neighborhoods I'd never visited. Grocery stores 50 miles from my apartment. Restaurant bills for family dinners I'd never attended. The doorbell rang at 9 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw Amanda standing there with all 3 kids in pajamas, their sleepy faces pressed against her legs like she'd dragged them from their beds for this performance. "Open up, Brig, we need to talk." I kept the chain lock fastened. "It's past their bedtime, this isn't appropriate." "Nothing about your behavior is appropriate." Amanda's voice carried that particular tone she'd perfected since childhood, the one that made adults assume I was the unreasonable sister. "You're destroying this family over money." 8-year-old Sophie peered through the crack in the door. "Aunt Brigitte, are you really moving to England? Mommy says you don't love us anymore." My heart clenched, but I held firm. "I love you very much, Sophie. Sometimes adults make difficult decisions to take care of themselves." "We don't have anywhere to go." Amanda continued bouncing 2-year-old Mason on her hip. "The landlord evicted us yesterday. I thought you could put us up until I figure things out." "You have Mom and Dad's house." "They don't have space for all of us. Plus, Mom thinks you should give me your apartment when you leave. It's only fair since I have children and you're running away to play career woman overseas." I closed the door, turned all the locks, and called my boyfriend Marcus. He answered on the first ring, jazz music playing softly in the background from his downtown loft. "How bad is it?" he asked without preamble. "Worse than we thought. They've been using my credit for years. I found loan applications, Marcus. Submitted to banks using my employment verification, my credit score, everything. They're trying to get approved for Amanda's art studio." "Art studio?" "Apparently, she's going to become a ceramics teacher, needs startup capital for equipment rent supplies. $110,000 worth." Marcus whistled low. "Did you authorize any of this?" "Of course not. But somehow they have access to employment records that should be confidential. Someone's been giving them information about my salary, my benefits, my performance reviews." Through my bedroom window, I could see Amanda's car still parked outside kids' faces, visible in the back seat, waiting for me to cave just like I always had. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Your sister is sleeping in her car with 3 babies because of your selfishness. I hope you can live with yourself." I screenshot the message and sent it to Marcus. "They're not babies, Mom. The oldest is 8, and Amanda chose to quit her job without any backup plan." 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before she replied, "Family takes care of family, Brigitte. Your grandmother would be ashamed." That's when I found it. Buried in my credit report, hidden among legitimate transactions, was a loan application for $50,000 submitted just last week. Listed as collateral, my 401k, my car, even my engagement ring from Marcus that I'd mentioned casually during a family dinner. The application had been approved. The London job offer email sat in my inbox like a golden ticket out of quicksand. Donovan and Associates International wanted me as their senior financial consultant, specializing in American market analysis for European clients. The salary was nearly double what I made in Chicago, plus full relocation assistance visa sponsorship, and a signing bonus that would cover any legal fees I might need for untangling this financial nightmare. I'd interviewed virtually 3 weeks ago thinking it was a long shot. My expertise in municipal bond analysis had caught their attention after I'd published research on American infrastructure investment patterns. The managing director, Catherine Blackwell, had been particularly impressed with my presentation on risk assessment strategies. "We need someone who understands American bureaucracy from the inside," she'd explained during our video call. "Someone who can help our clients navigate the complexities of investing in United States markets without getting burned by cultural assumptions." Now staring at the formal offer letter, I realized this job wasn't just a career move. It was survival. My laptop chimed with another email, this one from my buildings management company. "We received a request from Amanda Richardson claiming to be your authorized representative regarding your lease agreement. Please confirm whether she has permission to discuss your tenancy status or submit applications for lease transfer." I called the leasing office immediately. Janet, the property manager who'd helped me rent the apartment 2 years ago, sounded frustrated. "Your sister has been calling every day this week, Brigitte. She wants to know about taking over your lease when you move out. She even came by yesterday with some kids, said you'd given her permission to measure the bedrooms." I absolutely did not give her permission for anything. That's what I figured. She got pretty aggressive when I asked for written authorization, started talking about family emergencies and how you were abandoning your responsibilities, made quite a scene in the lobby. After hanging up, I walked through my apartment with fresh eyes. Everything I'd worked for, saved for, chosen carefully over years of building an independent life. The vintage leather couch I'd found at an estate sale and restored myself. The kitchen table Dad had helped me refinish back when he still treated me like his daughter, instead of the family ATM. The bookshelves lined with financial journals and novels I actually had time to read. Amanda wanted all of it. The apartment, the furniture, the life I'd created. My doorbell rang again. This time, it was Mrs. Patterson from across the hall holding a plate of homemade cookies and wearing the concerned expression she usually reserved for discussing the building's recycling policies. "Brigitte, dear, I hope you don't mind me saying, but that woman was here again today. The one with the children, she had a key." My blood went cold. "She had a what?" "A key to your apartment. I saw her trying to open your door around lunchtime. When it didn't work, she started jiggling the handle and cursing up a storm. Those poor children were right there listening to language I wouldn't repeat in church." "Mrs. Patterson, are you absolutely certain?" "Honey, I've lived in this building for 15 years. I know the difference between someone who belongs somewhere and someone who's trying to break in. She definitely had a key, but it wasn't the right one." That evening, I called a locksmith and had every lock changed. I also installed a security camera system that would alert my phone if anyone approached my door. The technician, a middle-aged man named Tony, who'd seen everything in his 20-year career, shook his head as he worked. "Family drama?" he asked, adjusting the camera angle. "Something like that. Take my advice, sweetheart. When people start making copies of your keys without permission, they're not family anymore. They're just criminals with your phone number. While Tony finished the installation, I researched London neighborhoods online. Bloomsbury looked perfect walking distance to the office and full of the kind of quiet parks where I could clear my head after work. I found a furnished flat available for immediate occupancy, sent my deposit through international wire transfer, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: excitement about the future. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Ms. Richardson, this is David Chen from First National Bank. I need to verify some recent loan activity on your account." My stomach dropped. "What kind of loan activity?" "We have an application for a business loan in the amount of $75,000 submitted this morning, with your social security number and employment information. The listed purpose is startup capital for a ceramics studio. Can you confirm you submitted this application?" "I absolutely did not submit any loan application." "I see. Ma'am, I need to inform you that we've received multiple applications over the past month using your personal information, all for different amounts, different stated purposes. Art studio, home renovation, debt consolidation, even a recreational vehicle purchase." "How many applications?" 14 total. Ma'am, this appears to be a case of identity theft. I strongly recommend you contact the Federal Trade Commission and place a fraud alert on your credit file immediately. After hanging up, I sat in my newly secured apartment and finally understood the scope of what my family had been doing. This wasn't just financial manipulation or boundary crossing. It was systematic fraud, and I'd been funding it for years. My phone rang one more time. Marcus checking in before his evening session at the recording studio where he worked as a sound engineer. "How are you holding up?" "They've been stealing my identity, Marcus. Not just using shared accounts, actually stealing my identity to apply for loans." "Jesus, how much are we talking about?" I pulled up my notes from the bank call. At least $500,000 in loan applications over the past month alone. Who knows what they've been doing that I haven't discovered yet? "You need to call the police." "They're my family." "No, Brigitte. Family doesn't commit felonies against each other. What they're doing is illegal, and if you don't stop it now, you're going to spend the next decade cleaning up their mess from London." He was right, but the weight of 28 years of family loyalty felt heavier than logic. That weight got a lot lighter when I checked my credit report one more time before bed. 15 new accounts had been opened in my name since our conversation that morning. The credit monitoring alert hit my phone at 6 a.m. like a fire alarm. 7 new credit card accounts, 3 personal loans, and 2 store credit lines had been approved overnight using my social security number. The total available credit exceeded $200,000. I called the credit bureaus before I'd even had coffee, spending 4 hours on hold and in transfers between departments designed to exhaust people into giving up. By noon, I had fraud alerts placed on all 3 reports and a growing pile of paperwork that would have impressed my most detail-oriented clients. "Ma'am, I need to inform you that we're seeing unusual patterns in your file," explained Sarah from Experience Fraud Department. "The applications are coming from multiple IP addresses across 3 different states, but they're all using identical employment verification numbers and reference contacts." "What does that mean?" "Someone has very detailed information about your financial profile, bank account numbers, employment history, even personal references. This isn't random identity theft. Whoever's doing this knows you personally." My hands shook as I pulled up the activity log. Credit card applications from Amanda's address in Wisconsin, where she'd moved last year to be closer to Mom. A car loan application from Mom's house in Minnesota. Even applications from Uncle Gerald's law office in Iowa using his business address as my workplace. The private investigator's office in downtown Chicago looked exactly like I'd expected from watching too many detective shows. Gray carpet metal filing cabinets, and a receptionist who'd clearly seen every type of human disaster possible. Patricia Mills specialized in financial crimes within families. Her reviews online were filled with testimonials from people who'd discovered their relatives had been systematically destroying their credit, emptying their accounts, even stealing their tax refunds. "What you're describing is..." unfortunately common. Patricia explained, reviewing the documentation I'd brought. Family members have access to information that makes identity theft much easier. They know your social security number, your mother's maiden name, your first pet's name, all the security questions that banks use for verification. She pulled out a thick folder. I handled a case last year where a woman discovered her mother had been using her identity for 15 years, opened over 40 credit accounts, bought 3 cars, even got a mortgage for a vacation home in Florida. How did she find out? The mother died and the creditors started calling the daughter for payment on debts she'd never heard of, $2 million worth. Patricia's initial investigation took 3 days. What she found made my family's betrayal look like organized crime. Amanda hadn't just been using my identity for loan applications. She'd been selling my personal information to debt consolidation companies, claiming I owed money to fake creditors. These companies had been pursuing collection actions, reporting fake debts to credit agencies, and even threatening legal action for money I'd never borrowed. "Your sister has quite an operation going," Patricia explained over lunch at a diner near her office. "She's created an entire network of fake businesses and creditors, all designed to make it look like you owe substantial money to multiple sources." She showed me printed emails between Amanda and various companies. "Look at this one. She's telling them you took out a $50,000 personal loan for gambling debts and are hiding assets to avoid payment." "I don't gamble. I've never even bought a lottery ticket." Doesn't matter. Once these fake debts are reported to credit agencies, they become real problems for you. Some of these companies have already filed preliminary legal paperwork. The evidence kept getting worse. Amanda had used my employment information to apply for rental apartments in 3 states, listing me as a co-signer without my knowledge. When she'd been evicted from previous places, those evictions had been reported on my credit as well. Here's the most sophisticated part. Patricia continued, pulling out bank records. "She's been intercepting your mail. Credit card offers pre-approved loan documents, even your tax paperwork. That's how she's been able to submit so many applications with accurate information. But I never gave her access to my mailbox. She didn't need it. Look at this postal service form." Patricia showed me an official document. She filed a change of address request 6 months ago, forwarding all your mail to a post office box in her name. Everything's been going there first, then she's been forwarding only the items she wants you to see. My employer's HR department had received multiple calls claiming I'd committed fraud. Anonymous tips to the IRS suggested I was hiding income from consulting work I'd never done. Even my professional certifications had been called into question by complaints filed with financial industry oversight boards. The scope of the sabotage was breathtaking. "Your family has been systematically attacking your professional reputation while simultaneously destroying your personal credit," Patricia summarized. "It's one of the most comprehensive identity theft cases I've seen." That evening, Marcus found me crying on my couch, surrounded by evidence of my family's betrayal. He sat down beside me, not saying anything, just offering the quiet presence that had made me fall in love with him 2 years ago. "I keep thinking about all the times I helped them," I finally said. "Every family dinner where they thanked me for being so generous. Every crisis where I was the solution to their problems. You were being a good sister and daughter. I was being an idiot." Marcus pulled me closer. "No, you were trusting people who should have been trustworthy. The fact that they betrayed that trust says everything about them and nothing about you." My phone buzzed with yet another unknown number. This time, I let it go to voicemail. When I listened to the message later, a recorded voice informed me that I had 5 days to respond to legal action regarding unpaid debts to something called Midwest Financial Solutions. I'd never heard of Midwest Financial Solutions, but according to their records, I owed them $87,000. Monday morning brought an email that made my coffee taste like ash. Catherine Blackwell from Donovan & Associates had received an anonymous letter claiming I'd embezzled funds from my current employer. The letter included detailed financial projections that looked official bank account numbers that seemed legitimate and a timeline of supposed fraudulent activity that spanned 2 years. "I'm required to take these allegations seriously," Catherine explained during an emergency video call. "Our legal department needs time to review the claims before we can finalize your employment." I stared at my laptop screen, watching my escape route crumble in real time. "Ms. Blackwell, I've never embezzled anything. I'm a financial analyst, not an accountant. I don't even have access to company funds. The letter claims you've been manipulating municipal bond reports to inflate commission payments. It includes what appears to be documentation of altered reports and bank deposits that correspond with bond settlements." "That's impossible. All my reports are reviewed by 3 different supervisors before publication, and commission payments go directly through payroll to all employees." Catherine's expression remained professionally neutral, but I could see doubt creeping into her eyes. "I believe you, Ms. Richardson, but our insurance requires a full background investigation when allegations like this arise. I'm afraid I'll need to put your start date on hold until we can resolve this matter." After the call ended, I sat in my office at Morrison & Associates trying to focus on legitimate work while my world collapsed around me. My supervisor, Janet Walsh, knocked on my doorframe around 10 a.m. "Brigitte, we need to talk." Janet had hired me straight out of college, mentored me through professional certification, and trusted me with increasingly complex projects as I'd proven my competence. Now she looked uncomfortable holding a folder that I suspected contained my professional death warrant. "I received a call this morning from someone claiming to be your mother." Janet began settling into the chair across from my desk. "She was very concerned about your mental health." "My mental health?" "She said you've been exhibiting signs of paranoid delusion, making accusations against family members claiming people are stealing your identity, talking about moving overseas to escape imaginary persecution." I felt my face flush with anger and embarrassment. "Janet, you know me. Do I seem paranoid or delusional?" "No, which is why I'm talking to you instead of just forwarding her concerns to HR. But Brigitte, she was very persuasive. She mentioned specific incidents, dates, even quoted conversations she claimed you'd had." "What kind of incidents?" Janet opened the folder. "She said you've been accusing your sister of financial fraud without evidence, that you've been monitoring family members' social media accounts and phone calls. She was particularly concerned about something involving changing locks and installing security cameras because you think your family is trying to break into your apartment." Each word felt like a slap. My mother had taken every reasonable step I'd taken to protect myself and twisted it into evidence of mental instability. "Did she mention anything else?" "She suggested we might want to consider requiring a psychiatric evaluation before allowing you access to confidential client data. Said she was worried you might make false accusations against colleagues if you're having paranoid episodes." I pulled up my documentation folder on my computer. "Janet, I need to show you something." For the next hour, I walked my supervisor through the evidence Patricia had compiled: bank statements, credit reports, loan applications, even recorded phone calls with creditors about debts I'd never incurred. Janet's expression changed from skepticism to shock to outrage as the evidence mounted. "Jesus Christ, Brigitte, they're trying to destroy your entire life. They're trying to destroy my career specifically. If I lose this job, I can't afford to fight them legally. If I can't take the London position, I'm trapped here while they continue the financial abuse. What do you need from me?" "I need documented proof that I've never had access to funds that could be embezzled. Performance reviews, access logs, anything that shows the allegations are impossible." Janet spent the rest of the morning compiling a comprehensive file of my employment history. Clean performance reviews restricted system access that prevented me from touching any money, even time-stamped email records that proved I'd been in the office during times when I was supposedly making fraudulent bank deposits. While she worked, my phone rang with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. When I finally answered one, a man's voice asked, "Is this Brigitte Richardson?" "Who's asking?" This is Detective Morrison with the Chicago Police Department. We've received reports of harassment and potential threats involving you and family members. We'd like to schedule a time to discuss the situation. Reports of harassment by me? Ma'am, I'd prefer to discuss the details in person. Can you come to the station this afternoon? At the police station, Detective Morrison was a tired-looking man in his 50s who'd clearly handled thousands of domestic disputes. He showed me a restraining order application that made my hands shake with fury. Amanda had filed papers claiming I'd been threatening her children, stalking her residence, and making harassing phone calls about money she didn't owe me. The application included what looked like screenshots of text messages, where I supposedly threatened to hurt her kids if she didn't pay me back. I've never sent these messages, I told Detective Morrison. I've been trying to avoid my family not harass them. Ma'am, these screenshots show your phone number as the sender. I pulled out my phone and showed him my actual text history with Amanda. Look at the real messages. I told her I wouldn't financially support her anymore and I declined to co-sign a loan. That's it. Detective Morrison compared the two sets of messages. The fake ones were filled with aggressive language and specific threats. The real ones were professional and brief. Someone's been spoofing your number, he concluded. This is identity theft, not harassment. You need to file a counter-complaint. By evening, I was emotionally exhausted but legally protected. The police report documented Amanda's false harassment claims. Janet had provided employment verification that made the embezzlement allegations impossible. Catherine Blackwell's legal team had enough evidence to dismiss the anonymous letter as obvious fabrication. But the damage was spreading faster than I could contain it. Marcus received a call at his studio warning him to be careful about the kind of woman you're involved with. Anonymous social media accounts had been created using my photos, posting content about financial desperation, and asking for money from people who knew me professionally. Someone had even contacted my landlord claiming I was planning to skip town without paying rent, leaving damages that would require expensive repairs. The systematic attack on my life had escalated to warfare. That night, as I sat in my apartment reviewing the day's disasters, my phone rang one more time. The caller ID showed Uncle Gerald's number. Brigitte, honey, we need to discuss this situation before it gets any worse. Uncle Gerald was a lawyer, Dad's younger brother, someone I'd trusted since childhood to give honest advice about important decisions. I'm listening, Uncle Gerald. Your mother and Amanda are planning to file for guardianship over your assets. They're claiming you're mentally incompetent due to paranoid delusions and financial irresponsibility. My blood turned to ice water. What does that mean? It means they want a court to declare you incapable of managing your own finances. If they succeed, they'll have legal control over your bank accounts, your apartment, even your job. They're scheduled for a hearing Monday morning. Monday morning. That's when I'm supposed to start in London. Brigitte, if you leave the country while this proceeding is pending, it'll look like you're fleeing mental health treatment. The court could issue a default judgment granting them everything they want. So what are you telling me? Uncle Gerald was quiet for a long moment. I'm telling you that your family is about to steal your entire life, and they're using the legal system to do it. Tuesday morning, I sat in the law offices of Morrison Klein & Associates, downtown Chicago's most feared litigation firm. The partner I'd hired, Catherine Sterling, had a reputation for destroying people who thought they could manipulate the legal system for personal gain. Your family has made several critical mistakes, Catherine explained, reviewing the mountain of evidence I'd brought. First, they've committed multiple felonies that are well documented. Second, they've involved law enforcement and the courts in their fraud scheme. Third, they've attacked your professional reputation in ways that create substantial financial damages. Catherine was in her late 40s with silver hair pulled back severely and eyes that missed nothing. Her office walls were covered with framed newspaper articles about high-profile cases she'd won, including several family fraud prosecutions that had resulted in significant prison sentences. What they've done to you isn't just identity theft, she continued. It's racketeering, organized crime. the systematic use of fraud, intimidation, and legal manipulation to steal someone's assets. Patricia, my private investigator, had spent the weekend compiling additional evidence. What she'd found made my family's crimes look like a sophisticated criminal operation. Amanda's gambling problem is much worse than anyone knew, Patricia reported. She owes money to 3 different illegal betting operations, high-interest loans from people who break kneecaps when payments are late. She showed me surveillance photos of Amanda meeting with men in expensive cars, receiving packages that were clearly not art supplies, and entering establishments that definitely weren't art studios. Your sister owes at least $300,000 to some very dangerous people. She's been promising them access to your assets as collateral. How did you find this out? One of them contacted me directly. Apparently, Amanda gave them your private investigator's number, claiming you were helping her launder money through fake identity theft claims. Catherine leaned forward. These loan sharks think you're part of Amanda's gambling operation. Worse, they think I'm the mastermind hiding assets offshore while Amanda takes the heat for their arrangement. The full scope of danger crystallized. Not only was my family destroying my life, they'd painted a target on my back for people who solved financial disputes with violence. Catherine picked up her phone. I'm calling the FBI. This crosses state lines, involves interstate fraud, and now includes potential threats from organized crime. This isn't family drama anymore. While Catherine made calls, I reviewed the evidence of my mother's involvement. Mom hadn't just enabled Amanda's fraud, she'd been actively participating. The reverse mortgage on her house included inflated property valuations that she'd obtained by bribing a corrupt appraiser. She'd used that fake equity as collateral for loans she had no intention of repaying. Your mother mortgaged her house for $250,000 based on fraudulent appraisals, Patricia explained. She gave most of that money to Amanda for gambling debts, then claimed the loan was for medical expenses that don't exist. Medical expenses. She's been telling creditors that your father has cancer and needs expensive treatment not covered by insurance. She's even created fake medical bills and hospital records. Dad didn't have cancer. Dad was perfectly healthy except for high blood pressure that was well controlled with standard medication. The cruelest part was discovering that Dad had been forced to participate against his will. Patricia had interviewed him separately, and he'd broken down completely, admitting that Mom and Amanda had been threatening him for months. They told him if he didn't cooperate with their stories, they'd have him committed to a nursing home, Patricia reported. They convinced him that you were planning to abandon the family anyway, so he might as well help protect Amanda's children. Dad thought he was saving his grandchildren from poverty. He didn't know Amanda had been gambling away every dollar they stole from me. Catherine returned from her phone calls with updates. The FBI is interested. Financial Crimes Division wants to review everything we have. They're particularly concerned about the interstate aspects and the involvement of loan sharks. What's our timeline? The guardianship hearing is Monday. We need to file counter motions by Thursday to stop the proceeding. But here's the good news: attempting to have someone declared incompetent while simultaneously committing fraud against them is so legally absurd that any judge will see through it immediately. What if the judge doesn't? Then we appeal and we file criminal complaints against everyone involved. Your family has created enough evidence to put themselves in federal prison for years. That afternoon, I received a call that changed everything. Marcus was at work when his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. Is this Marcus Chen? The voice was unfamiliar, with an accent that suggested careful English over another native language. Who's asking? You are involved with Brigitte Richardson. You should know she owes my associates significant money. She has been hiding assets and lying about her ability to pay. Marcus, being smarter than my family had assumed, immediately started recording the call. I think you have the wrong information. Brigitte doesn't gamble or borrow money. Mr. Chen, your girlfriend, has been very clever. She uses her sister as, how do you say, a front person. But we know where the money really goes. We know about the London job, the overseas accounts, the plan to disappear. What overseas accounts? Mr. Chen, we are reasonable businessmen. We want to resolve this situation without complications. You convince Ms. Richardson to meet with us, we can work out a payment plan. After the caller hung up, Marcus immediately called Catherine's office, then me, then the FBI number Catherine had provided. They think you're running an international money laundering operation, Marcus explained when we met at Catherine's office that evening. Amanda's been telling them you're the real gambler and she's just your front person for placing bets. Catherine listened to the recorded call twice. This is perfect evidence of extortion and criminal conspiracy. Your sister has created a story that puts you in physical danger to protect herself from her creditors. What happens next? Next, we destroy them legally. Federal fraud charges, state identity theft prosecutions, civil lawsuits for damages, and probably criminal conspiracy charges that could put your mother and sister in prison for decades. I just wanted them to stop stealing from me. Catherine's expression softened slightly. Brigitte, they escalated this far beyond family financial disputes. They've committed serious crimes against you and involved dangerous people in their fraud scheme. At this point, sending them to prison might be the only way to keep you safe. That night, I sat in my apartment with Marcus reviewing everything that had led to this moment. 6 years of thinking I was helping family members who needed support. 6 years of being systematically robbed, lied to, and manipulated by people who claimed to love me. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I asked Marcus as we shared takeout Chinese food and went through legal documents. I think you're doing the only thing that will stop them from destroying other people after they're done with you. Other people. Amanda's kids, for example. What happens when they're old enough to have credit scores? You think she won't do the same thing to them that she's done to you? Marcus was right. This wasn't just about me anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Last chance to resolve this quietly. Meet tomorrow night or we start looking for you. I forwarded the message to Catherine and the FBI. Tomorrow night, I had a choice to make between hiding in fear or fighting back with everything I had. I chose to fight. Thursday evening, I sat in the conference room at Uncle Gerald's law office, surrounded by evidence that would destroy my family and save my life. Catherine had orchestrated this confrontation like a military operation with FBI agents stationed outside and recording equipment documenting every word. Amanda walked in first wearing the same innocent expression she'd perfected in childhood when caught stealing cookies. Mom followed, clutching her purse like armor eyes darting around the room as she calculated escape routes. Dad came last, looking older than his 62 years and avoiding eye contact with everyone. Uncle Gerald had switched sides after learning the full scope of their crimes. As an officer of the court, he'd been legally required to withdraw from representing them and had offered to mediate this meeting instead of letting it go directly to criminal prosecution. Before we begin, I announced, standing at the head of the conference table, I want everyone to understand that this conversation is being recorded and that federal agents are available if needed. This isn't a negotiation. This is your opportunity to confess and cooperate. Amanda laughed the same dismissive sound she'd made when I'd tried to set boundaries as children. Confess to what trying to keep our family together while you run away to England. I placed the first stack of evidence on the table. Bank statements, loan applications, credit reports, and phone records that documented 6 years of systematic fraud. Confess to identity theft, wire fraud, mail fraud conspiracy, to commit racketeering and extortion, for starters. Mom found her voice. Brigitte, honey, you're clearly under tremendous stress. All this paranoia about your family isn't healthy. Paranoia. I pulled out the recorded phone call from the loan sharks. Amanda told dangerous criminals that I'm running a money laundering operation. They've threatened my boyfriend and are planning to track me down for money I don't owe. Dad looked up sharply. What criminals? The ones Amanda owes $300,000 for gambling debts. I replied, watching his face crumble as he realized how completely he'd been lied to. The ones she's been promising my assets to as collateral. Amanda doesn't gamble, Mom protested. She's studying meditation and ceramics. I laid out surveillance photos of Amanda entering illegal gambling establishments, meeting with known bookmakers, and receiving cash from people who definitely weren't art teachers. She's studying how to lose money faster than she can steal it from me. Amanda's facade finally cracked. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Those men will hurt my kids if I don't pay them back. So you thought you'd let them hurt me instead. You don't have children. You have a good job and a boyfriend who can take care of you. I have 3 kids who depend on me. The logic was so twisted that Uncle Gerald actually laughed out loud. Amanda, you've been committing felonies against your sister to fund gambling debts. How exactly does that help your children? I was going to pay her back when I got the art studio running. With what money? I pulled out more evidence. You've never applied for legitimate business licenses, never contacted ceramics suppliers, never even researched art studio insurance requirements. The only thing you've done is steal money to place more bets. Mom tried to regain control. This family doesn't air dirty laundry in public. We handle problems internally. Mom, you mortgaged your house based on fraudulent appraisals and used the money to fund Amanda's gambling addiction. Then you told creditors Dad has cancer to avoid repaying loans. That's not handling problems internally. That's organized crime. Dad stood up abruptly. What, I don't have cancer? Mom's been telling banks and credit companies that you need expensive medical treatment not covered by insurance. She's created fake medical bills for chemotherapy, radiation, even experimental treatments. Marie, what the hell is she talking about? Mom's hands shook as she tried to maintain her lies. I may have exaggerated your medical situation to get better loan terms. You've been telling people I'm dying just to buy us time to figure things out. Dad walked to the window, staring out at the Chicago skyline, while his wife's betrayal sank in. When he turned back, tears were running down his face. 43 years of marriage, and you've been lying about me having cancer to steal money from our daughter. The room fell silent except for Dad's quiet crying. Amanda made one last attempt to salvage the situation. Brigitte, we're family. We can work this out without involving outsiders. Amanda, you involved outsiders when you gave loan sharks my personal information. You involved outsiders when you filed false police reports. You involved outsiders when you tried to have me declared mentally incompetent. I was protecting my children. You were destroying my life. Catherine entered the room with a final piece of evidence that ended all pretense. We found Amanda's secret bank account, the one she's been using for gambling deposits. She laid out transaction records showing systematic theft from my accounts, followed by immediate transfers to online betting sites. Hundreds of thousands of dollars over 3 years, all traced directly from my savings to Amanda's gambling addiction. The pattern is clear. Steal from Brigitte, gamble it away, steal more. When the amounts got too large to hide, create fake creditors to make it look like Brigitte owed money to other people. Mom stared at the evidence, finally understanding that her daughter had been lying to everyone, including her. Amanda, how could you do this to your sister? How could I do this to her? She's single, no kids, making good money. I'm a single mother trying to provide for 3 children. By gambling away everything you steal, I was winning for a while. If I just had more time, I could have paid everyone back. Dad turned from the window. Amanda gambling addiction doesn't get better with more money, it gets worse. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Then why didn't you ask for help instead of becoming a criminal? Amanda collapsed into her chair, finally admitting defeat. Because asking for help meant admitting I had a problem. Stealing from Brigitte meant I could keep pretending everything was fine. Uncle Gerald cleared his throat. Here are your options. You can cooperate with federal prosecutors, accept responsibility for your crimes, and hope for reduced sentences. Or you can fight the charges and face decades in federal prison. What about the men Amanda owes money to? Dad asked. Catherine answered. The FBI will be arresting several of them tomorrow morning. Loan sharking is a federal crime, and threatening people over gambling debts is extortion. Will they leave Brigitte alone? Once they understand that Amanda lied about Brigitte being involved, and once they're facing federal charges of their own, they'll have bigger problems to worry about. Mom finally spoke, her voice barely audible. What happens to Amanda's children? That depends on whether Amanda chooses to accept responsibility and get treatment for her gambling addiction, I answered. If she cooperates, she might avoid the maximum sentences. If she fights this, her kids will grow up visiting her in federal prison. Amanda looked at her children's photos on her phone, then at the evidence of what her addiction had cost everyone. I need help, she whispered. Yes, you do, I agreed, but that doesn't excuse what you've done to me. The meeting ended with Amanda agreeing to plead guilty to federal charges in exchange for mandatory gambling addiction treatment and reduced prison time. Mom would cooperate with prosecutors and make restitution for the fraudulent loans. Dad would receive immunity in exchange for his testimony about being coerced into participating. As everyone prepared to leave, Dad approached me hesitantly. Brigitte, I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting Amanda's children, but I was just enabling her to hurt you more. I hugged my father for the first time in months. Dad, they manipulated you too. The difference is, you're taking responsibility now. Will you ever forgive us? I looked around the conference room at the evidence of 6 years of betrayal and thought about the question seriously. I'll forgive you for being manipulated, Dad, but I'll never forget that I had to threaten you with prison to get you to tell the truth. That night, Marcus and I packed the last of my belongings for the move to London. The FBI had cleared my background check, my employer had provided glowing recommendations, despite the attempted sabotage, and Donovan and Associates had confirmed my Monday start date. Are you sad? Marcus asked, taping up a box of books. I'm relieved. For the first time in my adult life, I'm not responsible for fixing my family's problems. What if they contact you after you're in London? I showed him the restraining orders Catherine had filed. They legally can't contact me for 3 years, and if they try to use my identity for anything, they'll violate their plea agreements and go straight to federal prison. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, my heart raced with fear that the loan sharks were contacting me again. Instead, it was a message from Amanda's oldest daughter, Sophie. Aunt Brigitte, Mom, told me what she did. I'm sorry she hurt you. I hope you're happy in England. 8 years old and already more mature than her mother. I typed back, I love you, Sophie. Take care of yourself. Some bridges were worth rebuilding someday. Others needed to burn completely to make room for something better. 6 months later, I sat in my Bloomsbury flat watching snow fall over Russell Square, while video calling with Uncle Gerald about the final legal proceedings. Amanda had been sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation and mandatory gambling addiction treatment. Mom received community service and 5 years of supervised probation. Both were required to pay full restitution, which would take them approximately 15 years to complete. The FBI rounded up the entire loan shark operation. Gerald reported, his voice clear through the international connection. 7 arrests, including the guys who threatened Marcus. They're facing federal racketeering charges that carry 20-year sentences. What about the money they were claiming I owed them? Completely fabricated. Amanda never borrowed $300,000 from them. She owed about $30,000, but she kept lying about having access to your assets to buy time. So she convinced dangerous criminals to threaten me over debts that were mostly fictional. Your sister has a real talent for making bad situations worse. I laughed, surprising myself with how little anger remained. How's Dad doing? Much better. He's in therapy dealing with the guilt and learning to recognize manipulation tactics. He asks about you constantly. Dad and I had been slowly rebuilding our relationship through weekly phone calls. The conversations were awkward at first, filled with apologies and careful boundaries, but genuine affection was emerging from underneath years of financial stress. He wants to visit London, Gerald continued. See your new life, meet Marcus properly, make amends in person. I'd like that. London had exceeded my expectations in every way. Donovan and Associates valued my expertise and treated me like a professional rather than a family bank account. My colleagues respected my boundaries, my boss appreciated my work, and my salary allowed me to live comfortably while building real savings for the first time since college. Marcus had joined me 3 months ago, finding work with a recording studio that specialized in film soundtracks. His visa application had been expedited after Catherine documented the threats he'd received because of my family's crimes. "I have something else to tell you," Gerald said, his tone shifting to something warmer. "Amanda's been clean for 4 months now, real gambling addiction treatment, not just court-ordered classes. She's writing you a letter." "I'm not ready for that." "I know, but she's finally taking responsibility for her actions instead of blaming circumstances. Her therapist thinks she might actually recover this time." Recovery was possible, but forgiveness would take years. Amanda had stolen 6 years of my financial security, nearly destroyed my career, and put my life in danger to feed an addiction she'd hidden from everyone. Trust once shattered so completely couldn't be rebuilt with good intentions and therapy attendance. My phone chimed with a video call from Sophie. Amanda's oldest daughter had been staying with Dad while her mother served her sentence, and we'd been talking regularly. At 9 years old, she was learning hard lessons about consequences and family dysfunction that no child should need to understand. "Aunt Brigitte, guess what I got an A on my math test?" "That's wonderful, sweetheart. What kind of math problems?" "Word problems about money, like if someone steals $50 and spends $30 on stupid things, how much do they need to earn to pay the $50 back?" I smiled at her practical approach to mathematics. "And what's the answer?" $50 plus whatever interest they owe, plus they should probably earn extra money to prove they're sorry. "That's exactly right. Grandpa says you're helping pay for my school supplies even though Mom can't help right now." It was true. I'd set up an education fund for all 3 of Amanda's children managed by Gerald to ensure the money actually went to school expenses. The kids deserved stability and opportunities despite their mother's choices. "Education is important, Sophie. I want you and your brothers to have every advantage. Will you come visit us when Mom gets out?" "Maybe. We'll see how things go." After Sophie hung up, I walked to my kitchen window overlooking the quiet London street. 2 young mothers were pushing strollers past the Victorian townhouses, chatting easily as their toddlers pointed at pigeons. Normal family life built on trust and mutual support rather than manipulation and financial abuse. Marcus found me there when he returned from work carrying flowers from the corner market and wearing the satisfied expression of someone who'd had a productive day, creating something beautiful. "How did the call with Gerald go?" "Amanda's making progress. Dad wants to visit. Sophie's thriving academically." "And how do you feel about all of that?" I considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, I would have felt responsible for everyone's happiness and guilty about setting boundaries. Now I felt something different, compassion without obligation. I feel hopeful that they're learning to take care of themselves. Marcus set the flowers on our small dining table and pulled me into a hug. "And how do you feel about us?" That answer was easy. I feel grateful every single day. We've been talking about marriage, about building a life together based on mutual respect and shared goals rather than financial necessity or family pressure. For the first time in my adult life, I was in a relationship that added joy rather than stress. My laptop chimed with an email from Catherine Blackwell. Donovan and Associates was promoting me to senior partner with equity in the firm and the opportunity to open a new department focused on helping American companies navigate European investment markets. The salary increase would make me financially secure in ways I'd never imagined possible. "More good news?" Marcus asked, reading over my shoulder. "The best news. I'm officially building the career I always wanted." That evening, we walked through Covent Garden, watching street performers and browsing bookshops, living the kind of spontaneous, joyful life that had been impossible when every phone call might bring a new family financial crisis. At dinner, Marcus raised his wine glass. "To new beginnings and old lessons learned." "What old lessons?" That family doesn't mean accepting abuse, that love requires boundaries, that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. I clinked my glass against his, and that sometimes you have to cross an ocean to find out who you really are when you're not fixing everyone else's problems. Later that night, I sat at my desk writing in the journal I'd started keeping in London. Processing 6 years of financial abuse and systematic betrayal took time, but each entry helped me understand how I'd lost myself in other people's crises and how I was slowly becoming whole again. Dear Journal, I wrote, "Today I realized that my family's greatest crime wasn't stealing my money. It was convincing me that my value came from solving their problems instead of pursuing my own dreams." I closed the journal and looked around my London flat. Furniture I'd chosen because I loved it, not because it was practical for hosting family emergencies. Books about subjects that interested me, not financial advice guides for managing other people's debts. Art that made me happy, not neutral decorations that wouldn't offend anyone's opinions. A life that was finally completely mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad, Brigitte. "I bought plane tickets to visit next month. I want to see the life you've built and tell you in person how proud I am of your courage." I smiled, typing back, "I'd love to show you around London, Dad. There's so much beauty here." And there was. Not just in the city, but in waking up each morning without dreading phone calls about money, in having conversations about dreams and goals instead of emergencies and obligations, in building a relationship with someone who loved me for who I was not what I could provide. 6 months ago, my family had tried to destroy my life to protect their lies. Instead, they'd forced me to discover something I'd never known. I was capable of saving myself, building something better, and finding happiness that didn't depend on other people's approval. The most profound lesson wasn't about money or boundaries or even family dysfunction. It was about the difference between surviving and thriving. I'd spent years surviving my family's crises, adapting to their chaos, managing their emergencies. Now I was thriving in my own life, creating my own joy, pursuing my own goals. That difference made all the struggle worth it. What would you have done if your own family had systematically stolen your identity and tried to destroy your career to cover their crimes? Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and maintaining family relationships? Share your thoughts below, and if this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the face of family betrayal. Don't forget to share this with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to put your own well-being first, even when family members make you feel guilty for setting boundaries. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it helps you recognize that you deserve relationships built on respect, not manipulation. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family is refuse to enable their destructive choices.